Hey, good morning. Just barely. It's Tuesday, July 21st. Great to be with you this morning. I'm going to continue, as I said yesterday in the morning segments, we're going to continue looking at Psalm 34. And I want to read three lines from here, and then we'll come back to it and give some more historical setting. So David says, I sought Yahweh, the covenant Lord, and he answered me, and he delivered me from everything I dreaded. Those who look to him brighten up, they become radiant. May their faces not blush, not be ashamed, have courage. This poor fellow cried, and Yahweh heard and saved him from all of his troubles. The angel of Yahweh keeps camping around those who fear him and rescues them. Now we're going to come back to this, but these words have immediate historical context for us. It's one of those places where the Bible just gives us an abundant amount of background information. This psalm is written, as David says, right after he flees Saul and he runs right into the Philistine camp because he's running for his life, literally. So why is he doing this? Why is he running into the Philistine camp? Well, in 1 Samuel 17, David conquers the Goliath and he becomes the hero, the darling of all Israel. Saul loves him. Everybody loves him. And he begins fighting their battles and they begin winning huge victories. That's where the phrase comes from. Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. So Saul, instead of being pleased at what God is doing, he demonstrates what is his true selfish heart. He becomes embittered towards David. And why is David gaining success that I'm not? And then his spirit's troubled because he had rejected God way back from 1 Samuel 15. And the effects of it are starting to come apparent. David plays the harp for him and encourages him. Even that's not enough. And then Saul winds up throwing a spear at David twice. Both Saul's wife and his dear friend Jonathan tell him, you've got to get out of here because your life is in danger. So one night, David becomes persuaded at both his wife Michal and his friend Jonathan's urgings, and he goes out and runs. And he leaves quickly, leaves everything behind, has no food, no armor, nothing. He goes to the high priest. He says, I need food, I need armor. The high priest feeds him, and he gives him the armor. The only armor he has to give him is Goliath's sword. And then from there, David runs right to Gath, where Achish is the king. And as he goes into Gath, Gath is Goliath's hometown. And he goes in there carrying Goliath's sword. You don't have to be some big strategist to figure out David's in trouble. So that day that David fled from Saul, reading from 1 Samuel, and went to Achish, king of Gath, the servants of Achish said to him, isn't this David, the king of the land? Isn't this the one that they sing about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. David took these words to heart. In other words, I'm in trouble. And he was very much afraid of Achish. So he feigned insanity in his presence. And while he was there in their presence, he acted like a madman. He's making marks on the wall. He's doing graffiti. The saliva is running down his beard. And Achish looks at this and says, what? Look at that man. He's insane. Why bring him to me? Am I so short of madmen that you have to bring me and this fellow here to carry on like this in front of me? Must this man come into my house? And Achish throws him out, and David is saved. That's the context for Psalm 34. That's what David is realizing. So when he says here, I sought Yahweh and he answered me and he delivered me from everything I dreaded. What he dreaded was being strung up and killed and slaughtered by the Philistines. And he had good reason to fear. So he says, those who look to Yahweh, their face becomes radiant. It gets bright. They won't blush. And he says, this poor fellow, meaning David, cried out and Yahweh heard him and saved him from all of his troubles, literally. And then this last phrase, the angel of Yahweh keeps camping around those who fear him and rescues them. And your translation might say camps around, but the better translation is what Davis does here, keeps camping around them, keeps himself around God's people all the time. He's always there caring for us. We see an example of that in 2 Kings when Elisha tells his servant, God opened his eyes and his servant sees the armies and angels of the Lord, the angels of fire, the chariots of fire around him. David is saying the angel of the Lord keeps on camping around God's people. See, this psalm is a psalm of hope, a psalm of encouragement. David was kind of crazy. He didn't have very good judgment. But you know, you and I are like that. We do crazy things too. And maybe we could have thought it through more clearly, but often we don't. And God is there with us. And that's really cool. And that's the thought for this morning. Have a great day. Bye-bye.